Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the special Troy City Council meeting of November 16th, 2024. I will call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call from Ms. Stewart.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krianga?
Here.
Councilmember Chanda?
Here.
Councilmember Gunn?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hodrick?
Here.
All present this morning. First up on the agenda, believe it or not, is public comment. Is anyone here for public comment or to speak? Same rules as in our regular council chamber, 3 minutes. You come up to this microphone, please state your name and address. We will, that doesn't amplify through that mic, as you may know, but it's for the recording, so just know that. Go ahead and come on up.
I never get to talk first.
And it's on my phone, so I apologize for that. But so last year, the city council had an opportunity to hire a Troy native, which would have been an outstanding fit for our city. Unfortunately, we chose a different path and led to a 7-month ongoing situation where the other candidate ultimately didn't sign their agreement. And so today we have the rare chance for a do-over and to get it right. Many of the reasons I supported Kurt for city manager remain true for one of the candidates today, Frank. He has dedicated his career to the city as police chief, serving with distinction also as being interim city manager. With over 25 years of experience and a deep understanding of our community, now is not the time to bring in someone unfamiliar with our city and our unique needs. Half a decade ago, I went through the fire academy alongside a police captain who worked closely with Frank, and I can personally attest to his commitment, integrity, and leadership. He understands the challenges we face, particularly in public safety, an area critical to our city's success. With multiple fire stations currently without a chief, we need a leader who knows these issues firsthand and can act intelligently and decisively. What sets Frank apart is his irreplaceable connection to the city, the people of the city. He spent his career building trust and relationships with his community, something no other candidate, through no fault of their own, can replicate. His lifelong dedication to Troy makes him uniquely qualified to lead us forward and continue making the city the best place to live. He's proven that to you over the last few months, and now he's proven it to us as well. So I urge you to consider this opportunity carefully and make the choice that reflects the values and priorities of our city, and choosing someone who knows us, values us, and will continue to serve us.
Thank you, Ed. Anyone else for public comment today? All right, with that, we'll move on to business stated in the special meeting notice. We have one item today. D1 is the city manager candidate interviews. We have 3 interviews set up in order as printed here. Frank Nastasi first, then Khalfani Stevens, and then Chris Wilson. It's our intent to take a 5-minute recess or so in between candidate interviews for us, for you, to stretch, to break, whatever you need to do. Just as a reminder to those here watching today, we're not making any decisions today. This is just the interview process. Our intent is to make the appointment at our November 25th meeting, which is about 9 days from now. With that said, I will turn it over to James Vitrano and get things started.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the public, this is a process that's been 2 days, so this is a culmination from yesterday. Yesterday, each candidate had a 90-minute tour of city facilities, each had a 45-minute discussion with department heads, and then we're available for a 60-minute period with all city employees and a 60-minute period with the public. The information was gathered from those that participated in that event. It was packaged up and provided to city council members, and so we appreciate the candidates' participation and preparation in a long day yesterday. Today we have the formal interview process. As the mayor said, we have 3, and each interview will be approximately 55 minutes. I will be quite quiet during the interviews until we get closer and closer to that time, and I may speak up. It is important to me that our candidates have nearly the same time with you this morning. So each of you will ask a question as printed for the candidates, and each candidate will receive the same question. If you have any follow-up for clarity on a specific answer or a specific question, please ask to be recognized by the mayor, but also remember we're on a time schedule with each candidate, so we're going to have to stay quite focused. Other than that, is there any questions for me before I get our first candidate? I'll get our first candidate.
Should be music playing or something.
Walkout music. Tigers.
Too many I need to.
All right. Thank you, Frank, for joining us this morning. We're going to get right into it. I have the first question for you, which you are prepared for, and then each council member and the mayor have a question that they'll ask around. They'll go around twice, so we have that many questions to get to.
Great.
And we have about 55 minutes with you this morning. Relax. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. And this is your opportunity to introduce yourself to the council again as a candidate, as well as we're being live streamed and videotaped. So your opportunity, we've asked you to prepare a short 3 to 5 minute statement regarding your interest in this position and why you would excel as Troy's next city manager.
Thank you. Thank you, council. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. See a lot of familiar faces, so that's really nice. I'm here to discuss my interest in the city manager position. It's an honor to share how my experience, commitment to the city, and proven leadership make me an ideal candidate. With over 31 years of law enforcement experience, 28 years here in the city of Troy, and 6 as the police chief, I bring a unique perspective and a strong foundation in public service to this role. Leading the police department, managing a $30 million budget, overseeing 167 employees, and having been invaluable for developing the skills necessary for city management. Since stepping into the city manager role, I've worked hard to maintain stability, support our staff, and ensure that our city goals are achieved. Throughout my career, safety has been my mission, and I've worked hard to make Troy a more livable and safe community. In this role, I've hit the ground running, working to address city priorities, complete projects, and foster strong, supportive relationships with both council and our talented staff. I'm proud of the progress we've made, and I'm eager to keep that momentum going. One of my priorities has been community engagement. I started that Troy Talk. It's where once a month I meet with the citizens and leaders from various departments and connect in a nice informal way. This initiative is just one example of my commitment to making our government accessible, transparent, and responsive to our citizens' needs. Connecting with people has always been a core part of my leadership approach, and I'm passionate about continuing to foster and cooperate with our citizens. I understand the DNA of Troy. I dedicated most of my career here into the city of Troy, as we all know. I also value training, professional development, and creating a supportive work environment. The opportunity to step into this role has been rewarding, and I'm grateful to council for allowing me this opportunity to serve the citizens in this new capacity. The temporary positions allowed me to test out the role and also allowed staff and yourselves to test out me. I found that while challenging at times, this position is very fulfilling, and I'd be honored to continue in it. I'm straightforward, hardworking, dedicated to accomplishing all the city's goals and remaining connected to the needs of our citizens. Troy has always been more than a place just to work for me. It's a community I'm deeply proud of. The relationships I've built with the residents, the schools, businesses, places of worship are the foundation of what I bring to this position. With strong commitment to Troy's future and deep respect for ethical leadership, I am ready to support the council, staff, and our citizens in moving forward together to new heights. So, thank you, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Frank. I get the first question, and then we'll work around. Council, remember to, I won't call on you, follow your, you know how to find us. Anyway, so my first question is, I frequently speak on the value of relationships and how relationships matter, especially as a public servant. Our city council members are nonpartisan by charter, and our city manager is supposed to be apartisan or apolitical. That said, a successful city manager and public servant will need to build and maintain relationships with people of varying beliefs, political views, and life experiences. Please explain your approach to relationship building and relationship maintenance using your past municipal experiences to illustrate where you have succeeded and where you may have failed, and what you learned as a result.
That was quite a few questions.
Most of my questions are statements.
Relationships is the core of what I do. I did not move up through the police department by, just not building relationships. It's so key. Not only do I build them internally, but externally, with the citizens. We have the community services section in the police department. It does over 150 programs a year. It's all about relationship building, connecting to the community. And that's what I'm very, very proud of, and that's what I bring to this position. I'm very approachable. I think there's a time and a place for emails and texts and stuff like that, but to really build a relationship requires trust and face-to-face. Trust is so very important to relationships because in the PD, we all know, law enforcement over the years has its ups and downs. And trust is so important because you can lose it in just so quickly. So with that being said, if I say I'm going to do something, it's going to get done. If something is delayed, I'll explain why. It's that communication, that two-way, and collaborating is so important to relationships. As far as, I think you said failing, I do recall during COVID, I thought we were doing all we could for the officers to keep them safe. We had decon stations set up into the police garage, so every car that came in off a shift was fumigated. There were single-person cars, we didn't have roll calls, but the officers didn't feel safe, and we missed that communication point. So what we did was we improved it, we spoke, and then we came up with a different work schedule where they felt safe coming into work and still were able to decompress. So it worked out really well. So,
Thank you. Councilmember Chamberlain-Crangan.
Thank you, Mayor. So also multi-part question. How would you describe your management and leadership style? Please identify strengths and weakness related to both your management and your leadership approach. And identify how do you hold direct reports accountable for projects and/or issues that you've delegated to them?
my management style, well, the way I look at it, you manage things, you lead people. So that's kind of the basics. My style is collaborative. I like to work with people. Each and every one of us in this room is smart, but we're much, much smarter together. I'm adaptive in two ways. One is if there's a decision made and somebody else comes up with a better decision, it doesn't matter who it is. I don't have that ego. We'll change and do what's best for the community, the organization. You have to be adaptable, working with people, because different people, when you're leading them, are in different areas of their life. Whether it's a new worker that needs more coaching and mentoring, or one of our seasoned employees that just remove obstacles. So I'm really big on that. I'm a servant leader. I lead by example. When we're doing training in the police department, so when you're out in the range, I just remember being a younger officer and seeing upper command while we're moving targets and stuff and setting stuff up, just standing over there talking to them. So I made sure, even as chief, I'm carrying the metal targets, we're stapling stuff up together. It's just, people are watching you. You know, you got to lead by example. So I think that's very important. As far as direct reports, again, that's communication. If I have a task that I'm delegating to somebody, you can delegate the task, but you can't delegate the responsibility. That still falls with me, so there's going to be communication, follow-up, of course give them a deadline on it. If they need some help with it, they can come and see me. It's not a problem. We'll make sure it gets done. If it doesn't, then also, you know, I've been a leader for a long time. I'll handle it appropriately and, you know, take that on also.
Councilman Hamilton.
Please describe to us your experience hiring candidates in the various roles you will be supervising, and please share how you will recruit, screen, and bring talented individuals into Troy. And finally, how will you create an environment where they want to stay with the city?
Love it. Hiring candidates, coming from the PD, we all know that it's been very difficult, and we had to think outside the box. And it's so funny, as soon as Troy or another city came up with an idea, they would copy it. So whatever we did to get people in was very short term, because everyone else got on board for that. I worked well with HR. HR came up with that recruit, while working with our people too. The recruit program really opened doors, getting younger people in that might not have the money to sponsor themselves. So now they're employees, we sponsor them, and when they come out of the academy, we're not over there trying to fight for these pre-service people. They're already working for us. So that's been fantastic. So I would continue with those type of ideas, reaching out to the colleges, universities, getting these smart young people, these talented people into the city in the various roles. As far as environment, to have them stay here, what I found, everything's portable nowadays, whether it's your healthcare savings, retirement, pay, you can go just about anywhere for an extra buck. The important thing is culture and making sure people want to come into work. It's a good environment. HR has initiative that actually have an employee engagement committee that was from a year ago, and they had great ideas. And when I got into the office, I was approached by HR. I said, yeah, let's roll it out. Should have been rolled out probably 6 months ago. So, and it's right behind you up there. Pursue excellence in our work, communicate, collaborate, and respect each other. That bottom right, I would have wrote that myself, but they came up with it. I think it's incredible to communicate. We need to collaborate, and the respect is something very, very important within the organization. I noticed because the building's older, it's kind of set up in silos. I don't like it. I don't have the money to fix that, but we're working with HR to bring people together more, even though the building, the way it's set up, isn't really conducive of that. So,
Thank you. Councilman Shonda.
What do you think the city could do in short and long term to make Troy more attractive to younger generation?
I got 3 of them at home, the younger generations. The short term, I think we've been doing really good. They want a sense of place. What we're doing on Big Beaver, bringing the buildings forward, more walkability. People don't like driving far, so if you can go to a restaurant or get entertainment or your doctor's office, I think that's great for the young people. My kids, I couldn't wait to get my license. My one son, it was like he's 19, I'm like, it's your driver's license. So it's a different world, but they're smart. The kids today are very smart. Long term, I'm going off the resident survey. I know a lot of my kids like that downtown feel. I know it's difficult for Troy because, we don't have that area that was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. That's, whether it's in Royal Oak or Romeo or these different towns. But we got really smart people, in our planning and building department, engineering, are coming up with ways. And the key is, working with the citizens, and get data. I like data because, we all have emotions, we all have feelings, but we need to have something that's sustainable for the long term. So not just going out, like our budget, we go out 3 years for operational, then 5 years for capital. But when you're talking long term, we're talking 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. So I think it's so very important. So.
Thank you. Councilman Gunn.
Troy has a growing list of capital needs, such as the library and city hall. What is your vision for these capital projects, and how will you help the community move forward in a constructive direction?
Well, we're not unique. We're like a lot of other cities. We have a ton of capital needs, but only so much money. So the key thing is communication with our citizens, and determine, collectively what the needs are and what the wants are. Definitely a need is the library. I toured it. It was great for when Troy was 40 years ago plus, but not today. And it was very eye-opening. City Hall, we got 57 buildings, they're getting tired. But I think that's the key thing, is sitting down with our experts, my department heads, and we're gathering all that information and we'll bring it to council and also residents, and we'll work on it collectively and solve that.
Thank you. Councilman Hart, Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. How will you ensure that you maintain high ethical standards both in your work and the work of the city employees?
Well, coming from law enforcement, ethics is everything. Integrity is everything. You don't have that, you can't be an officer. You can't testify in court. You can't, work with our federal partners because of the Giglio Act. So it's kind of ingrained in who I am. I've been, for this shy of 2 months, I've been here for 20 years, so I know a lot of the employees and stuff. They're all so ethical, and coming off of, I won't say any names, prior city manager, a lot of them had PTSD, so the accountability and us watching out for each other is very, very high. So I have no worries about that, but part of that is, like I said, the open communication, working together on problems, ethics and integrity. It's like the tenets of the ICMA. Right now I'm in a lot of different professional organizations, which I think are fantastic because you get to collaborate with people, get best ideas. Some things work, some things don't. Why start from the beginning? It's like, in police work, we don't like saying stealing, but we borrow ideas. But it's the exact same thing with cities, doing that. And, I went to the mayor and city manager meeting, and I was talking to other cities and talking about cost sharing on different things and collaborating. And that's what we do my entire career in law enforcement. We collaborate with surrounding cities, we collaborate, with the county, state, and federal partnerships. So we have all those resources. I know I skewed off of it, but I thought it was important to include all that too.
Go ahead and follow up.
You used a term Giglio Act. Could you just define that for?
That's basically what it is if you do something and it's an integrity issue, everyone makes mistakes, everyone's human, but you own up to them, okay? So if you back up and you hit a pole with the car, you come in to tell the boss, whoops, I backed up and hit the pole. You get a little write-up and then we all move forward. DPW is not too happy about it, but you can't make everyone happy. But if you don't say nothing and the boss comes up and sees it and asks you what happened and you lie, okay, now it's discipline. Now it affects everything, and it could cost you not only your career but your job. So you just don't put up with it. So that's how Giglio works: is if it's in your file and you're trying to put in for a task force, and whatever federal agency working for it, they'll say no. Don't even have them in the interviews. We're going to interview the other two. Yeah.
Councilwoman Brooks.
How would you prioritize competing demands and interests within a community, particularly when resources are limited, and how will you ensure that the diverse voices of our community are heard and considered?
That's all communication. We have so many things that this community needs, and like I said, what really helps is that resident survey. So instead of just speaking to one or two people and me thinking, wow, I think this is what 87,000 people want, I have a really good idea. I'm also about helping the individual though. So when people call in, we do all we can to help the individual and then try to see if it's a bigger issue or problem. Maybe it's a neighborhood thing or something larger. We do have limited resources, so that's where, like I said earlier, we need all hands on deck. Me, I know a lot of things. I got skill, knowledge, and ability, but I rely on my experts, for election stuff. Aileen, fantastic job. Kurt with the DPW. I mean, I could go on and on and on, with this information and stuff. As far as with diversity, I think it's our strength. It's a strength within our employees. It's definitely a strength within our town, with our residents. It's a very diverse community. Every voice should be heard. And if there's a part of the community that thinks it's not being heard, I will personally go out and speak with them. I think it's so important to hear everybody. I know, coming up through the ranks in different jobs, it was, I was appreciative that somebody listened to me. Even if you didn't do what I wanted or my suggestion, it's just that listening, connecting, I think is so important.
Councilman Hamilton.
The internal culture in the city is important, and we want to make sure employees feel respected, supported, and encouraged to do their best work for the city. As city manager, how would you improve employee satisfaction across all departments? That also includes volunteers.
Culture is so very, very important. It starts from the top down. I like to, like I said, walk around and see people and let them be heard. When HR set up their community the engagement with the employees, as one of the things we kept hearing is acknowledgement. It was like across the board as we're getting feedback. So we've been working really hard on that to make sure that people are acknowledged for their hard work, their good work, setting up different events to get them together, and listening, removing those stumbling blocks, roadblocks. Me, being in the city manager's office, it would be silly for me to go up and tell somebody at the clerk's office, oh, I need you to change this, how you run the front desk, and stuff like that. They're our area experts. Even if they have 2 years on the job, I want to hear from them what they're doing, let them be heard, because I don't want from the top to make a decision that negatively impact them. I want to work together. I understand I'm the decision maker and I'll do that, but it's that collaboration, working together, I think it really helps build. We're going to continue with this initiative. I've been working with HR. They have many more initiatives that we'll be rolling out that are employee specific to really help with the culture and help with morale.
Thank you. Councilman Gunn.
In our council manager form of government chosen as city manager, you will report to 7 bosses, each with the inability to do anything without at least 3 others. Please share how you intend to navigate the city manager role, reporting to the 7 of us, including how you would handle a divided council.
As I said earlier when I first spoke, it was a great opportunity for me to step in and kind of test out this role. If you asked me while I was over there being the police chief, hey, would you be interested in going from 1 boss to 7? I don't know. I'd have to really think about that. But I've been here a long time. I've known many in this room for many years, so I feel very comfortable. You're all great people to work for, very smart. As far as if there's differences on the council, I think that's great. You don't all have to agree. But you need to be agreeable, if that makes sense, and you guys do a really good job at that. If you guys, we've all seen on different videos and stuff, some city councils in other unnamed cities and the infighting and craziness. I wouldn't be putting in for this role. I'm too long in the tooth to be putting up for that. So I do appreciate you guys for that. So if you guys are divided, the simple answer is 4 votes win.
understands the math. That's good. All right. Councilman Chanda.
Thank you, Mayor. Please describe the extent of your experience with business and economic development and redevelopment. What would you consider to be your most significant accomplishment in this area?
Love this question, coming from the law enforcement, so I understand. As far as economic development, gosh, I think we've all been seeing it. I don't know if there's a parcel in the city that hasn't been looked at or reviewed or wants to be developed. So it's kind of doing its own course. But my thing is, supporting our current businesses. And a big part of supporting our businesses is whether it's a business that wants to come into town or wants to stay in town. And through our resident survey, safety is number one. You're not going to be moving into Troy if your business is going to constantly get broken into and stuff. And I spent 28 years here ensuring that doesn't happen. And we're going to continue public safety, our fire, our EMS, public works is top notch in supporting our businesses. I know through the survey that as far as economic development, our citizens, especially the younger people, want affordable housing. And our developers are looking into that. I know they're taking some old office buildings and, turning them into places for people to live. I know it's probably not the most cost effective, but I'm glad they're doing that because I've got, like I said, 3 young adults in the house. They need to eventually move. Also, aligning with community values is so important for economic development. We need to do resource-driven decisions and data-driven planning. Planning is so important for economic development. I was talking about just our city-owned properties, the 57 buildings. But there's areas in the city, and I think it's great to get redeveloped. I'm very plugged into the DDA, brownfield development, the TIPS, tax increment financing, where we're able to do those improvements in those areas economically for our businesses without costing anything for our citizens. So I think that's so important to do that. And also, I know we're all familiar with the 3P, the public-private partnerships. The Troy Racquetball Club is for one. When I was in the PD, we have those ALPR, the cameras for the cars that are stolen or really bad felonies. And now private businesses, whether let's say it's Somerset or the Motor Mall, can get them, and then we can connect into them. So it's that cost sharing. And not only for that, but for surrounding. You can't, as a city, just work in a bubble. So working with all our area partners, our cities, county, state, and feds. And the last component I think is most important is engagement. So we need to engage our residents, engage our businesses, and engage stakeholders when it comes to economic development in our infrastructure.
Thank you. Next one's me. Please describe a situation when you disagreed with your governing board or boss, and how did you approach that difference of opinion and explain the final result of the situation?
I don't think we've disagreed yet. But going through my career, there was times, it's just natural, all humans, where you disagree. But like I said earlier, don't be disagreeable. So the thing is clear with that is open communication. It's my job to give you guys all the facts, all the information. You guys are the decision makers. So I'm going to tell you the good stuff, the stuff you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the stuff you don't want to hear. But I got to give you all the information. And the way I look at it, there's like 101 ways to cross the finish line. So as long as it's ethical, legal, we're following our charter, code, ordinances, there's really not a wrong way. I may not agree with it, but once you guys get together and you guys make that decision, I own it too. So I'm not going to be going around behind the scenes like, oh, this is what council wants to do. It's silly. It undermines the whole process. So I'm going to treat it as my decision, and we're going to move forward collectively, together, unified.
Councilwoman Chamberlain Crankle.
How have you engaged the community in understanding municipal budget limitations and setting realistic priorities? What approaches have you found most effective in building public support for budget adjustments?
Well, I'm very simplistic. It comes down to the communication. We just did the first Troy talk, what I talked about in my opening statement, and it was a great idea, but it's become even better because Courtney Flynn, our communications director, said, hey, why don't we do it in such a way that it's impactful, for different times throughout the year. So the next one's going to be in December with the DPW because we're going to be doing that new snow ordinance. And so people can sit down instead of, it's great, them coming up in front of you for public comment, but it's very intimidating for a lot of people. It's not very comfortable. This isn't very comfortable. So, being able to connect with the community and listen to them and speak honestly with them. There are budget limits and we can't do everything for every individual. We have to collectively do it for all of our citizens. And what's amazing is when you sit down with our citizens, they're very smart. The key is to be transparent with them, be truthful, let them know, here's the funds. And our finance department does a fantastic job of being transparent with our budget. So anytime any citizen wants, they can go online, click on it, and there's a breakdown. My gosh, the police department alone is probably over 150 budget lines that I have to deal with. And it's all a funnel, So we take all that, our department heads, and it goes down into that funnel. And then what we have left is for you guys to make the ultimate decision with that. And I know you guys are very connected to the community. So I know we have those limited resources, but working together and making sure that our residents have a seat at the table will be all successful.
Councilwoman Brooks.
What specific strategies would you employ to foster collaboration and communication among various city departments and stakeholders?
That is so important. That's what I did touch on earlier, is all these great initiatives like that, United and Unique, working together to grow the community, that inclusiveness, getting people involved, pushing down decision-making, lower to the people so you can empower your people. In our organization, we're hiring some very smart, talented people. And, the old days, like when I started in business and stuff, you got somebody, on one side of the room and then all the young people over there and they don't want your input and stuff like that. And the world's changed. I welcome it. It's amazing what I've learned from not only my young adults in my house, but going around talking to, all these great employees that we have and getting the information. So it's all about, collaboration, respect, doing these initiatives, and you just don't set them out there and walk away. They need constant. This is something that happens throughout the year and years to build that, and it just doesn't happen overnight. And I've been working on that, and I will continue to work on that.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
What opportunities do you look forward to as Troy's city manager? And conversely, what are the challenges you see coming Troy's way? Why are you the best candidate to seize those opportunities and face those challenges?
The opportunities here are endless. We have a great community. We have great community support. We have, I could just speak on and on about our school system, our businesses, world-class shopping over at the collection, stuff that's coming up, with the new center over there where the old Kmart building is and stuff. So I see the opportunities are there. Internally, there's tons of opportunities. I see there's a lot of things going on, not only with employees, but within the city, that just need that push to get going. I've been so busy, it seems like I've come in I don't know, the 9th hour, because it feels like, no, this should have all been done, a lot of the things that we're working on and stuff. So the employees are behind it, I know council's behind it, moving together. So those are like some of the opportunities. The challenges are definitely, so many capital projects and so little money. I know the library is very important. It's been 12 years, so we really need to get moving on that. Our EMS is so important too. We had Alliance, then we moved to Universal, and they really are trying their best, but when you have a bunch of new trucks, ambulances, but nobody to drive them, they spread themselves thin, and our, residents, when they call 911, the police are there, but we also need EMS. So I'm not trying to be an alarmist. They're doing their job, but can it be better? Probably. So we need to really look at that. I know the experts coming in December to discuss some of the findings and stuff like that. So collectively, work through that. I spoke earlier, about, the buildings and infrastructure. Those are definitely challenges. Our residents, are big into recreation. So, getting grants, getting funding, trying to, find other ways to pay for things, that private-public partnerships. Always we're using our money wisely here, but that's the big thing, all these capital projects and how to address them, prioritize them, and again, to that needs and wants category. I feel I'm the best candidate to handle all that. I understand Troy. I understand the pitfalls and the challenges. I know what a great city this is. When people come together and work on a problem, I kind of figured it out, not even with overtime. Being here for 28 years, it's like 60,000 hours of work in this city, which is a lot. Gosh. So I understand all that. I understand the businesses. I understand the residents. I've been to the schools, worked hand in hand with them, the places of worship, working with council for years and, a month and a half or so. And we'll get through it. It's going to be difficult, but we will.
James?
Thank you. Frank, it's now your opportunity. We don't have a ton of time left, but if you want to prioritize a question or two that you may have for the council members, this would be your opportunity to ask them.
Okay. Well, I've been in constant communication for all you great folks for a while, and plus more so this past month and a half, just shy of 2 months. So I don't have any specific questions, but just in closing, I want to thank you all again for this chance to speak and consider me for this permanent role. The city and its people has been my focus and motivation for nearly 30 decades. It's a long time. In this position, my goal has been clear: to work steadily, listen openly, and lead with integrity that Troy deserves. I'm proud of the progress that we've made all together. I want to continue that progress. I want to continue working with employees, the citizens, our businesses, everyone, in moving Troy forward, which it deserves, with ethical leadership.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else from council, we will take a short break.
Mike, I have a question for you, James.
Thank you.
Are the candidates lined up on the hour, or are they just waiting until we come back? Meaning, is the next candidate expected to start at 10, or whenever we say it's time to start?
They have a general time, but they will be here when you're ready. So if you want to take a 5-minute break, we can start the next one early.
All right, why don't we take a 5-minute recess, and we'll try to get back started in 5 minutes.
Maybe after this one.
This one. I don't know, James. Oops, I preached again.
Next break, I'll hit it.
All right, I don't know if the TV's back on, camera's back on. We'll go back on the record, but James isn't here, so I shouldn't have gone back on the record. Oh, we're here, he's like, yeah.
It's formal council meeting.
Okay.
Mayor, can I just go?
You know what, I gotta go back off because we just lost our clerk. So give us a sec.
This is.
Sure. I'm gonna do this again. All right, we are back on the record for real this time, Cindy and Sean, if you're watching. So there you go. All right. Oh, we lost Mark Gunn.
Mark.
Is he back there?
I saw Mark back there.
He's probably back there. Do you want to go check? There he goes. All right. I will turn it back over to you, James, to introduce our next candidate.
Thank you, Mayor. Your next candidate is Khalfani Stevens. As you know, and as the candidate knows, he'll have an opportunity to introduce himself more formally with the first question. As with the first interview, will be about 55 minutes with the candidate, and for the candidate's knowledge, I will ask the first question, which you're prepared for, and then each of the council member will ask questions around the table, and we'll go around twice, so they'll each have 2 questions that they'll ask you. And I will go ahead and kick us off if you're ready. All right. We've asked you to prepare a short 3 to 5 minute statement regarding your interest in the position and why you would excel as Troy's next city manager. The floor is yours, Khalfani.
Thank you. So thank you, James. Thank you, city council members. Thank you to everyone who took the time out of your day to come to this room and all of those of you who are watching. So I'm Khalfani Stevens. I am a candidate for city manager of Troy, and I am here today to tell you why I believe that I would be the best candidate for that position. So just for everyone in the city council obviously has a copy of my resume. Some of you in the audience may not, and some of those of you who are watching may not. So I'm going to briefly go over some things that you would find there. I'm a seasoned government administration professional with direct experience at local, county, and state levels. I'm an expert in community development and city management. I have led cross-departmental teams, developed city master plans, managed grants, and stood in for chief executives, as well as hosting international delegations and so much more that is on the resume. Some work achievements include developing the strategy that resulted in the state of Michigan creating a $750 million program to help municipalities address pension underfundedness. Taking the city of Pontiac parking division from the red to the black. Lifting workplace morale and negotiating favorable contracts both with unions and developers. I have an undergraduate degree with honors from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, with concentrations in history and linguistics. I have an MBA from Wayne State University with concentrations in marketing and finance, a slew of other professional certifications behind that. Along with English, je parle français, ich también hablo español. Ich will Deutsch lernen, aber meine Deutsche ist nicht sehr gut, so meine Französisch und meine Spanish. I serve as the chair of the Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency and am the board member liaison for the Michigan Municipal League to the Michigan Municipal League Foundation. I am also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated and serve on the foundation board for the Pontiac Alumni Chapter. All of that and more is on my resume, but that does not tell you who I am and why I would be the best candidate. That just tells you that I am a qualified candidate. So who am I? I'm a northern boy with deep southern roots. I spent the first 7 summers of my life on a family farm in Leslie, Georgia. I'm a husband, a father, a theater kid. I've been on stage since I was old enough to say Happy Easter. But still, that doesn't tell you why I would be good for Troy. And in the time that I have left, I'm gonna tell you a short story that I believe expresses why I would be good for Troy. Almost 30% of the population of Troy is foreign-born. And growing up in America, black in America, I wanted to escape. And that is why I took French. I could have taken Spanish, but I saw how people of Latin descent were treated, and I wanted upper mobility, so Spanish wasn't an option. I could have taken Japanese, but I am a history major, a lover of history, and I understand that during World War II, we interned people of Japanese descent, so that also was not going to solve my problem. But French. French was the touted language of business and international diplomacy, the language of love. The French promised liberté, égalité, fraternité. If you could only speak French and go there, you would be accepted. I knew of Josephine Baker, I knew of James Baldwin. I was going to be them. So I got myself a job, I moved to France, and I was ready. But liberté, fraternité, égalité were not there to meet me. My name, Khalfani, is actually of Arabic origin, Khalfani. My French was so good that I was not American, but not perfect, so I was not French. My almond complexion, my curly but not super tight hair made me present as Muslim North African. And so all of what I was trying to escape, I ran to in France. So I came back from there and decided that I was going to dedicate my life to making this place, America, the place that it was supposed to be. And I've read some of the things that I've done in other cities, and I am happy to talk about how those experiences and training would help the city of Troy meet its goals. And I'm ready to hear your questions.
Thank you, appreciate that. I have the first one, and as I've learned, it's 3/4 statement, 1/4 question. So here we go. I frequently speak on the value of relationships and how relationships matter, especially as a public servant. Our city council members are nonpartisan by charter, and our city manager is supposed to be apartisan or apolitical. That said, a successful city manager and public servant will need to build and maintain relationships with people of varying beliefs, political views, and life experiences. Please explain your approach to relationship building and relationship maintenance, using your past municipal experiences to illustrate where you have succeeded and where you may have failed, and what you have learned as a result.
Great, thank you so much for that question. So I believe my opening statement explains my history and my ability to relate to others. I have used that consistently throughout my work. I have a speech that I give to the Kappa Leaguers, so those are the young men that I work with through Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and that speech is called The Power of Two. Now, that is a play on words and a double entendre. Tu, T-U, is the Latin-based word which means you. To T-double-O is the English word for also, and T-W-O is the English word for two, as in more than one. The purpose of that speech is to explain that anything that is worth doing cannot be done alone. It begins with you, the individual, too, but you have to build bridges and relationships in order to do that. And so that is how I have built my career and what I do. Examples of that. So right now, currently, the city of Pontiac is working with Oakland County. Oakland County is going to demolish the large parking deck called the Phoenix Plaza, and they are going to replace it with a smaller deck, and on top of that deck there currently is a 2-acre amphitheater. Oakland County is going to set aside space at ground level that has to be the same dimensions as the existing amphitheater. I negotiated that deal, but I negotiated that deal not through fighting and being obstinate. I negotiated that deal by asking the Oakland County board members what was it that they needed out of the deal. I knew what the city of Pontiac needed. What the city of Pontiac needed was for that albatross to be taken away from us. What the city of Pontiac needed was to have the space on top of that building brought down to ground level. We needed the influx of workers. but what did Oakland County need out of that deal? So I began with the relationship of asking what was it that we could do for them, not what they could do for us, because I knew we would not sign on the bottom line if we didn't get the deal that we needed. And so by working with them that way, we were able to get a favorable outcome for the city. In the city of Flint, when I came in as the director, the new director for the Kellogg grant, the Kellogg Foundation was ready to take that grant away from Flint because Flint had underperformed on the grant. And what I did was I immediately spoke with the program officer, learned about him, tried to find out why did Kellogg give the grant to begin with, what were the issues that, from Kellogg's perspective, and again, what did Kellogg want to see as a result? And from that, I built such a great relationship that not only did they not take the grant, they extended the time frame of the grant, and it allowed us to do wonderful things in Flint.
Thank you. Councilmember Chamberlain-Crennan.
Thank you, Mayor. How would you describe your management and leadership style? Please identify strengths and weaknesses related to both your management and your leadership approach. And identify how you hold direct reports accountable for projects and/or issues that you've delegated to them.
Thank you. I would say that easily my management style is that of coaching. I am a strong believer in team. And to illustrate that, it's old, but it has lived with me all of my life, and so I want to tell you a quick story. When I was in high school, I was the captain of the swim and dive team. And we did not have a diving coach. And diving was actually my specialty, so much so to the point where I had a scholarship for diving to college. I ended up not taking it because I took my academic scholarship, but diving was my specialty. And through a series of events, the city of Pontiac schools ended up without a diving coach, but the person who had been our coach offered that all of us who were divers could come and practice with him at his new facility. And so I did that for about 3 weeks. No, it wasn't even that long, probably closer to 2 weeks. And I showed back up at practice at Pontiac Central High School, and my swim coach was like, "Why are you here? You're supposed to be diving." And I said, "I'm the team captain. I can't focus on me and diving and be the team captain. I have to be here." And so that is my strong belief in team, and I carry that through to today. So as a manager, my goal is to provide my team members with all of the resources they need in order to be successful. If what they need is someone to run interference, I'm there. If what they need is someone to make sure that they have the right materials to do the job, I'm there. I'm their advocate. I am mopping the floors. There is no job, there is no activity that is beyond and above me. It is my job to make sure that my team can function. I would say that is my strength. My strength is being able to pour into people and build them up and have them see the possibilities in themselves that they don't always know are there. I will say that a large number of my direct reports have gone on to leave whatever organization I am with and become take much larger positions. My weakness is that I believe in people, and what I mean by that is I definitely hold people accountable, but by the time I hold you accountable, I have given you every opportunity to succeed. It is only at the point where the horse has been led to water and refuses to drink that I am ready to change horses.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton.
Please describe to us your experience hiring candidates in the various roles you will be supervising. And please share how you will recruit, screen, and bring talented individuals into Troy? And finally, how will you create an environment where they want to stay with the city?
Recruit, screen, and
Bring talented individuals into Troy.
hire. Okay. So I do have experience hiring a number of different positions, department heads. And one thing that I've learned from the Michigan Municipal League is that it is much more effective and efficient to hire for culture than it is to hire specifically for high-performing talent. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, instead of looking at a group of resumes, scoring them out and saying, solely based on talent and how you did on a test, I am choosing the person who has the highest competence in this skill set. Instead, there is a cutter. There is a range at which anyone who is here or above is capable of doing this job. And after that, looking at only that subset of people, and inside of that subset of people, looking for the ones who actually believe in the mission of the organization. Because everything that we do should be mission driven. What is the mission of government? How are we carrying out that mission? Do you believe in that, or are you here simply because it was the next best job that you could do? I'm not looking for the people who are here because it's the next best job that they can do. I'm looking for the people that are here because they are passionate about government, they are passionate about people, and they want to help. Obviously, they have to be qualified in order to do that, which is why we begin with, are you at this level or above? But after that, we have people are our biggest investment, and we treat them like that and we invest in them. We have training programs. We have, at the city of Pontiac, we realized that we were underperforming in pay. So we went through a large study to figure out, what was our pay versus other people's pay. And we put together a compensation philosophy, and we didn't dilly-dally, right? We didn't say, hey, we're gonna roll this in over the course of 2 years. We looked at our finances, we said we can handle it, and we took that big hit immediately. And we did that, and it raised employee morale. We have a number of employee engagement programs that we've started that didn't exist before. And none of these programs are going to directly add services to the public, but all of these programs change morale and make people want to show up at work. And so I would bring that same type of recruiting and screening process here. I would bring that same type of investment in employees and workplace morale here to make this a place where individuals want to be.
Thank you. Councilmember Chanda.
Thank you, Mayor. What do you think the city could do in short and long term to make Troy more attractive to the younger generation?
Great question. I'm glad that you asked that question because recently, so one of the things that I did not go over is that I am on the Oakland County Land Bank Authority Board. And so we were talking on the board about housing programs. And specifically, we were talking about income-based housing programs. So some people call it affordable housing, some people call it low-income housing, attainable housing, workforce housing. Whatever you want to call it, it is the idea that there is housing that is specifically set aside for individuals who make less than a certain amount of money. And what I said about that was, I do not know personally an individual, actually I do know one, but aside from that one very specific individual, I do not know anyone personally who is at a six-figure job level that began their career and left college as a high wage earner. Most people I know left college and were at a stage of life where they would have qualified for what we call low-income housing, workforce housing, affordable housing, whatever you want to call it. And so we need to change the narrative of what that is. This is not them, this is not those people, this is us. When I graduated from college with honors from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, fully bilingual and almost trilingual, I could not find a job that paid me enough money that I could live anywhere other than my parents' basement. So what can we do immediately to help the younger generation? We can find a way to provide them with housing. We can find a way to provide them with better public transportation so that they can actually get back and forth to jobs. I spoke to one individual yesterday, and he lives in Troy, but he works in Pontiac. Now, I can tell you personally, I know that's only a 15-minute commute, but depending on the job that you have, that 15-minute commute and the investment in an automobile in order to make that commute is a good chunk of your income at that level. It would be so much better and so much easier for individuals if they could actually take reliable public transportation. So immediately, those are things that we could do.
How about long term?
The immediate is the housing, the longer term is the transportation. You could snap your fingers and just put a bunch of money into the smart system for the flex, but really for a true long-term sustainable response, we would want to look at transportation. Even more long-term than that, we can work with the school system, because I began the answer by talking about college graduates. We spent a number of years in this country telling everyone the only way to be a successful, viable member of society is to have a college degree, and now we don't have enough plumbers, we don't have enough carpenters, we don't have enough tradesmen, and the cost of living has been inflated because of that. So long-term, what we can do is we can work with the school district, we can work with our parents to change the mindset that you have to have a college degree to be a successful individual. We can bring programs back to the schools so that individuals can graduate from high school and be ready to succeed in life.
Thank you. Councilmember Gunn.
Troy has a growing list of capital needs such as the library and city hall. What is your vision for these capital projects, and how will you help the community move forward in a constructive direction?
Great question. So we are facing a similar situation in the city of Pontiac. City of Pontiac currently does not have a DPW facility. We estimate that's about a $30 million investment. City Hall has $12 million of deferred maintenance investment. The courts and the sheriff substation combined have another $12 million of deferred investment, so that's 12 and 12 is 24, plus 30 is $54 million of, and that's on the low end, investment needed just to bring the city to a point where it has facilities that meet the needs of today, not even facilities that meet the needs of tomorrow. So what I've done is worked with City Council. We found a building that for approximately $32 million, we can acquire and renovate and fit all of those needs for today, plus have expansion space for tomorrow, and even be able to accommodate other facilities that are not owned by the city. So those other facilities would be the library and the school district administration building. So we are working forward on that. Why am I telling that story? I'm telling that story to say that has been a year-long project of education and discussion just with the city council. So I would have those same discussions with the Troy City Council, but more importantly, with the populace, right? So why is a library important? I don't use the library. Some residents are going to say, I don't have children, all of these things. Well, a library is a key indicator of success. I would not be where I am today if I didn't have access to the library. And the library is not just a collection of books. It's a gathering space. It is a community space. It is a space. It is a safe space. It is a space where the Oakland Literacy Council goes to tutor individuals so that they can learn English and they can pass their citizenship exams. There are all of these reasons why a library is so important and so much more than just a place that you drop off your kid to do their book report. But somewhere in time, we've lost that. And so we have to go back and actually explain to everyone why this is important. And then after we've explained to them why it's important, we need to listen to them and understand why either they didn't think it was important or why after they admit that it is important and they say, these are all of the other things that I think are more important to that in my life. And we need to figure out how to balance the equation so that we can have all of the things that are important and needed.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. How will you ensure that you maintain high ethical standards both in your work and the work of the city employees?
Oh, thank you for that question. The answer to this is going to be my shortest answer. You do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because you think it is going to bring you praise, not because of any other earthly reason you may think of. It is the right thing, and that is what you do, and there is no tolerance for equivocating on that.
The shortest question and the shortest answer.
Never mind. I'll hold my tongue. Councilmember Brooks.
How do you prioritize competing demands and interests within a community, particularly when resources are limited, and how will you ensure that the diverse voices of our community are heard and considered?
Thank you for that question. The first part about competing demands. So as I was expressing to Councilmember Gunn, demands are competing partially because of a lack of education. So the first thing to do is to not indoctrinate. So the first thing to do is not to go and say, you need to know this and you need to believe that this is important. The first thing to do is to educate. And part of educating is being educated. You have to listen. So going to the populace and asking, what is important to you? Because competing demands, whose demands, right? It's not the demands of Khalfani Stevens. It's not the demands of the city manager. It is the demands of the residents of the city of Troy. And those demands are brought to me by the city council, but they're also brought to me directly by the residents of the city. And so listening to all of the demands and understanding what they are, and then educating council to say, hey, this is what's out there. Educating residents to say, I know you pay your taxes, but did you know that Troy is not an anomaly in communities? And generally speaking, the taxes that you pay are not dedicated to roads. And so when it's time to do these roads, we're doing road millages, or we are flipping cartwheels to find grants to match our Act 51 funding to be able to do roads. Oh, and by the way, the Act 51 funding really is targeted towards the main roads, not toward your local roads. We get some money for the neighborhood streets, but really not that much. People don't know that. I didn't know that until I worked for government. And so just laying out the reality of this is where we are. And now that you know all of this, now tell me, what are your demands? Have they changed? Oh, maybe they have. Okay, and so now let's go and work through. As far as the diversity question goes, I direct you back to a couple of my opening statements. I'm the northern boy who spent the first 7 years of my life going to the family farm in the summer. I understand the diversity of urban and rural. Now, we don't have that specific diversity in Troy, but it's diversity. And I have dedicated, because of the dichotomy of experiences that I have had, I am hyper-focused to the idea that what might be right for me and what might be the normal status quo for me is not necessarily true for the person next to me. And so trying to make sure that I set a table that works for everyone. Thank you so much. My older brother has a severe shellfish allergy. And I love to cook. And so this sounds simple and minor, but because I love to cook so much, I frequently am asked to help people plan events. And when I do this event planning, I am I guess you could call it the executive chef, right? I'm the menu coordinator. And I'm always asking, do we have a vegetarian option? Do we have a vegan option? Do we have a gluten-free option? In our vegetarian options, have we included a complete protein, right? So not just beans, but beans and rice. All of these things are very, very minor, minute details, but the purpose of me saying this is, for diversity, it's not about checking a box. It's about asking, have we created a situation where everyone is able to participate? And that is what I believe I do.
Councilmember Hamilton.
The internal culture of the city of Troy is important, and we want to make sure employees feel respected, supported, and encouraged to do their best work for the city. As city manager, how will you improve employee and volunteer satisfaction across all departments?
All right. So I can show you better than I can tell you. I had an employee at the city of Pontiac who has an autoimmune disease and randomly didn't show up for work one day. Okay, I don't actually see everyone every day, so I didn't know that they weren't there. Then they also weren't there the next day. All right, so now it's an issue because people are asking me. And so I'm calling her phone, I'm calling her fiance's phone. Finally I got her fiance and oh my God, she had this crazy autoimmune thing and was in the hospital. Great, not a problem. Filled out the paperwork for her and did what needed to be done. That simple act, and it wasn't like I went publicizing it, she told people about it at City Hall. That simple act of kindness and just showing that, again, we spend so much time together at work. I don't want to say the corny, oh, we're a family. No, not that. People want to go home and see their actual families. But we spend so much time together at work that if we can't figure out how to take care of each other, people aren't going to want to be here. And so that's the first thing. The first thing is to make everyone understand that this is a welcoming, inclusive space. When we went to go redo our benefits at the city of Pontiac, I realized that you could be a single person, you could be married with children. And I'm using those three specifically because we did not include or allow for domestic partnerships. And there was no good reason, right? And so I asked, I was like, does it cost more money? Is there some special thing we have to do with the insurance companies? No, city just didn't ask for it. And I was like, no, we're including that. We are going to be inclusive. Like that is something that we're going to do. again, we started the different employee morale programs. So we had a Halloween program. So that had two parts to it. The first part was every department was supposed to decorate their area, and the second part was on Halloween, they wanted everyone to come in costume. So the mayor's office definitely decorated, and I showed up as the Scarecrow from The Wiz all day long with my costume on, face paint and all. I've got it on my phone if you don't believe me. But that is what we do, right? We have to make work a place where people are okay being there for 8+ hours a day. The last thing I can say is, again, City of Pontiac, our hours are 8 to 5. But effectively, I had departments that were working 7:30 to 5:30 because they had to get there early to prepare for the public, and they had to be there late after balancing the books. And they didn't ask me. I told them, I was like, why are you available from 8 to 5? And they're like, because City Hall's open from 8 to 5. I said, no, you should be available from 8:30 to 4:30, because from 8 to 8:30, you are doing all of your paperwork. From 4:30 to 5, you are closing down and balancing your books. Again, that simple act of kindness, of just understanding that you are here because you have a job to do, not because this is literally your life. Yes, I want you to love what you do. I want you to be here to service the public, but I also want you to have a work-life balance.
Thank you. Councilmember Gunn.
In our council manager form of government, if chosen as city manager, you will report to 7 bosses, each with the inability to do anything without at least 3 others. Please share how you intend to navigate the city manager role, reporting to the 7 of us, including how you would handle a divided council.
Thank you. Wow, that's almost as short as Councilwoman Hoderick's question. So, to me, it's very simple. The city is an organization. The city manager is the CEO, and the city council is the board of directors. It is my job to understand what the board of directors wants done and to carry out those objectives. There will be times when, as you said, the board of directors will be divided, and it is my job to work through that division with them, because at the end of the day, a decision has to be made. No decision is a decision to walk off the edge of the cliff, and we're not going to allow that to happen.
Thank you. Councilmember Chanda.
Please describe the extent of your experience with business and economic development and redevelopment. What would you consider to be your most significant accomplishment in this area?
Oh, wow. All right, so my experience with economic development. So my background is economic development. That is where I began my work in government. And actually, it is my frustration with economic development that has led me to want to become a city manager. So just very briefly, I was working with the city of Pontiac in economic development, and it was the time when the state of Michigan was giving all of the credits for movie theaters, for movie studios. We had one in the city of Pontiac. The city of Pontiac was going to give them a Renaissance zone and abate all taxes. And I was like, stop! You can't do that. We have existing bond indebtedness, and if you erase all of the taxes on this property, the city will not be able to pay that bond indebtedness. And so I did win that fight, partially, because they did in fact give them a Renaissance zone, but they specifically negotiated you still have to pay the same amount of money you're paying for the bond indebtedness. So it was more like a modified Renaissance zone. But that would not be my biggest accomplishment, but that's just an example of the level of understanding that I have for all of the things that go into economic development. And the reason that I wanted to become into city management was to be able to not have to spend hours and days explaining all of the nuances of how these things connect to each other, but being able to look at the forest and not the trees. One of my best examples of economic development, I will say, is Flint, Michigan right now. So there is a former General Motors facility that has been purchased by Ashley Capital and is in the process of being redeveloped. So that was a 3-year project in the making, and required, again, lots of discussion back and forth with City Council and explanation. But as I sit here, that might turn out to be the biggest one, but probably my favorite one is AUCH, A-U-C-H Construction in Pontiac, Michigan. So they are just over 100-year-old, small-ish company, been in Pontiac their entire existence. They wanted to stay in Pontiac, and so I helped them find, again, a former General Motors location that they were able to move into. That's my favorite because Ashley Capital, they're a huge multinational investor. They were going to find a location. AUCH Construction, without my assistance, they would not still be in Pontiac. So that's actually my favorite story. Thank you.
Thank you. Please describe a situation when you disagreed with your governing board or boss, and how did you approach that difference of opinion, and explain, please, the final result of the situation?
Oh, wow. So let's go for boss. And let's stick with, because it's fresh in my mind, City of Pontiac. Again, so I told you about the story where we decided that we were going to do the wage and compensation study and, change salaries. There was definitely a disagreement between myself and the HR department on one side and the mayor on the other, whereby this was not, from our standpoint, this was not just, hey, people want to have more money. It was, hey, we have a morale issue. Part of the morale issue is that people are not happy with the amount of money they're making. We don't just want to give people more money. We want to understand, where are we competitively? We want people to be fairly compensated. We don't want them to be overcompensated. We don't want them to be undercompensated. And inside of that fair compensation, we want to have a philosophy, a scheme, a system to say, when that individual person is no longer there, how do we make sure that that position stays fairly compensated? And so really getting the mayor to the point of understanding compensation philosophy, as opposed to this person gets a raise, that person gets a raise, this person doesn't get a raise, that was a very long discussion. But we finally did get to, obviously, what I believe is the right answer.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig?
Thank you, Mayor. How have you engaged the community in understanding municipal budget limitations and setting realistic priorities? What approaches have you found most effective in building public support for budget adjustments?
There is no better answer for that than showing up where people are most comfortable and answering their questions. And answering their questions without, so educating and not indoctrinating. I need to go back to that. So when I'm answering questions, I'm not there to steer you in a direction. I am there because I need you to be the most knowledgeable voter that you can possibly be, right? There may be something that I believe and something that I want, and I think that this is the right answer, but that's me looking at it from my lens. Again, I cannot emphasize how much diversity is important, right? So my lens is the lens of a 15-year economic developer. My lens is the lens of a 20-year government professional, a professor of budgeting at University of Michigan Flint's graduate program. My lens is different from the lens of the stay-at-home parent. My lens is different than the lens of the teacher who has to buy supplies for their classroom and has a student of their own. So I am not there to persuade, I am there to educate. And then once I've educated you, now we can have a meaningful discussion. And as a result of that meaningful discussion, I am going to understand what your priorities are and why those priorities are what they are. And then as the CEO of the organization, I will be able to speak with the board of directors and say, hey, this is what our constituency want. This is what our customers are demanding. And here are ways that we can provide them with what they're demanding.
Thank you. Councilmember Brooks.
What strategies would you employ to foster collaboration and communication among various city departments and stakeholders?
Right. The first piece to that question is making sure that every department and stakeholder understands that they are as important as the other. You know, there is, I'll just do it. There is a passage in the Christian Bible where it talks about the body, and it talks about the fact that, you know, you can't have a functioning body that is only the hand and only the mouth, only the ears, only the eyes. No one part of the body is more important than any other part of the body. No one department is more important than any other department. Everyone can make an argument for why any department is the most important department, right? Police and fire can't get to where they're going if the roads aren't done. The roads can't be done if we don't have workers, which means that you have to have an HR department. HR can't do anything if we don't have money, so you have to have a finance department. Finance can't do anything without having a building to work in. So, right, so you can go roundabout and try to decide who is the most important, but at the end of the day, every department is as important as every other department. So it is making sure that everyone understands that it is the mission of the organization, not the goal of the individual department, that is the driving factor of what it is that we do.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
We're easing on down the road. I had to insert
That's a whiz joke in case no one understood what she was doing.
Sorry, just wanted to wake up a little bit. What opportunities do you look forward to as Troy's city manager? And conversely, what are the challenges you see coming Troy's way? Why are you the best candidate to seize those opportunities and face those challenges?
Thank you for that question. I am so excited, and the reason why I'm so excited for that question is, so yesterday we got to meet with residents, with department heads, and with line staff. And I am excited about the idea of coming to work for Troy because of the conversations that I had yesterday. There was a large angst, I can say, in the conversations that I had about what was going to be the moral integrity of the person who was going to come. Would that person be collaborative? Would that person be open to the advice of subject matter experts? Would that person be compassionate? Would that person be able to understand the needs of individuals who normally don't have a voice at the table? That is, I think, in telling the stories that I've told, that is me, that is who I am, that is what I do. And so I am impassioned about the idea of being able to provide the residents of Troy with an ease of mind that the person who has been delegated to run the day-to-day functions of their city is doing it not because this is the next best high-paying job, is not doing it because this is some ladder climbing activity. I will tell you, because I told one of the residents, they said, "Great, what are you doing after this?" I said, "Nothing." This is the last city government job that I honestly intend to have. I mean, I could stay at the city of Pontiac forever, right? This is not about that. This is about me getting to a point where I can truly work on cultivating and curating the forest. All right, I'm working directly with the governing body. The final part that I would say is, as far as challenges go, I would be entirely full of hubris to say, I'm not worried about any challenges. There's no challenges like that. If anyone said that, they would not be the right individual for the job. Being a theater kid, a stage kid, I will say that you have to be afraid, and then you have to channel that fear into positive action. So what am I afraid of? What I am afraid of is all of that angst that made me so excited to want to come and be here. I am afraid of not being able to meet that requirement fast enough, because I know government. I know how government works. I know that it does not move at the speed of the private sector. So it is my intention to quickly be able to communicate with everyone and level set expectations. Hey, we have heard you. We understand what it is that you want. Here is our plan for providing that, and here is a realistic time frame and how long it's going to take us to do that. And so those are my passions and fears.
James, we're short on time, but last one's to you.
Thank you. Khalfani, thank you very much for your time with us this morning. We are coming to the close, but if you could prioritize one question to ask the city council members, I'll give you the floor to ask a question if you would like.
Great. So my question to the city council members is, what is it that you have not heard from me today that you wish you had heard?
The problem with this question, James, is there's 7 of us who may have different ideas, right? So that's a little bit tough. Does anybody have anything that's really pressing? We'll go that route. Something they really thought of? I mean, go ahead, Councilman Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess what I'm looking for is specifically what challenges for Troy are you looking to solve? Have you perceived in the research you've done and the interaction with city staff and everything, what are the specific biggest challenges that we have to face, and what's your plan to deal with them?
Anyone else? That's going to be an easy one.
Let's stick with that one. I think that's a good one. You good with that?
Yeah.
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 All right, so the specific challenges that I see for the city of Troy, again, are education. So we can say, oh, there's a financial issue and we can't do this, we can't do that. The reality of the situation is people spend money on what they want to spend money on. So the city of Troy has one of the lowest millage rates in Oakland County. And the balance sheet for the city is in good condition, and by all financial measures other than deferred maintenance, the city is doing swimmingly. So it is an education item of really asking people, do they understand where property values are coming from? Do they understand what deferred maintenance is? Do they understand what happens if we choose not, and I do mean choose, not to make these investments today, and what is eventually going to come down the line tomorrow? Once we have all of those conversations and we provide the education, I believe that we can get to a point where we will be able to make the appropriate improvements to the library, to other government facilities, to the parks, and to go a step further and tell you what is my plan. My plan, as I said before, is to meet the people where they are, right? To be at the places of worship, to be at the senior center, to be at the gathering spots, and to be an open book, to hear not only, again, what's driving them, but also to just educate them and inform them. You know, you heard about this brownfield program. What did that mean? What did the city give? Why did the city do that? You heard about these different consent judgments, you know, why did we have to allow that to be built? I used to serve on a planning commission. And so explaining like, yeah, you know what, you may be upset because the planning commissioners voted for whatever, but had they not voted for it, not only would it have happened anyway, it would have resulted in a lawsuit, and the city, you, taxpayer, would have ended up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawyer fees and court time. So that would be my plan and the specific challenge.
Thank you, Khalfani. I'll leave you the last 1 minute to kind of summarize and provide something to close with City Council.
So I gave you my stories at the beginning. I think that really summarizes who I am, who my beliefs are. As far as development goes, I mean, I have worked with more international companies than I can name off the top of my head, but my passion is working with the smaller companies, partially because a company does not spring out of the womb as Amazon or General Motors. They start in someone's basement, they start as an idea, and so working with those individuals, the individuals who would not be able to do it but for the fact that someone believed in them. We didn't get to talk about it today, but providing safety. People have to feel safe in the environment in which they are in. And so what does that mean? Well, I mean, safety comes in a number of different ways. The building department is the building and safety department, right? So making sure that all of our buildings in the city are up to a certain standard. Part of the reason why we're able to have a volunteer fire department is because of the great work of the building and safety department. But part of the reason that people are in Troy is because they feel safe. Why do they feel safe? I mean, they feel safe because of lighting. They feel safe because of the upkeep of public spaces. And let's face it, they feel safe because of the presence of safety officers. But making sure that those safety officers don't also inadvertently pose a threat to individuals. I told you about speaking with people in their angst about just being heard. And so making sure that we are representative of the community, that is what I represent, and that is what I'm hoping the council members of the city of Troy will allow me to come to the city and provide.
Thank you very much, Khalfani.
Thank you. Khalfani, appreciate your time. We're going to recess until 10 after 11.
Perfect.
Or 11, yeah, right. We are back on the record, welcoming Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chris, for being here this morning. As I've said before, this is the last part of your process with us. You'll have an opportunity to introduce yourself with the first question that I'll ask. Each council member will ask 2 questions. We'll go around the table and they'll ask their questions throughout. It will be about 55 minutes, and whether we have some time at the end for a quick question or not, that we'll determine at that point. So with that, if there's nothing else, I'll ask my first question. We've asked you to prepare a short 3 to 5 minute statement regarding your interest in this position and why you would excel as Troy's next city manager.
Oh, thank you. Chris Wilson, currently city manager of Huntington Woods. The last 3 years, 13 years prior to that, I was with the village of Beverly Hills. And 4 years prior to that, I was with the city of Algonac. A couple of years before that, I worked in a small community up in the middle of the state. I've been a city manager, city/village manager for 22 years. I think my interest in the position, well, it's not the first time. And my wife is, we're starting her 20th year in the Troy School District. She's been a teacher. Currently at Troy High, has taught like 17 years there, 3 years at Bowman Park. I think 1 or 2 years splitting time a little bit between the two. So I have long ties at Troy. My wife's happy there. And unless something drastically changes, we'll probably retire from there. I have 4 kids in the Troy School District, 2 in high school, 1 in middle school, 1 in elementary school. The 2 youngest will be matriculating up to new schools next year. So I've been very familiar with Troy over the time. Served on the soccer board for, I think, 16 years. I've been chair for the last 6 years. Professionally, this is what I've done. I've been doing this for 22 years. I somewhat oddly and maybe ill-advisedly just walked right out of graduate school and took my first city manager's job, and I don't know anything else. And at this point, I think I'm professionally quite committed. This will probably be what I do until I don't do it anymore. And I'd be happy to do it here. Will I be successful in the city of Troy? Yeah, I can give you all kinds of reasons why. It's probably a bit premature to say that. I don't know that. I think I will be. If I didn't think I would be, I wouldn't be here. I have too much respect for Troy and the profession to put myself in a situation to fail. And it's hard to put yourself out there like that. So I've got a background. It's pretty easy to search, pretty easy to find. I can't hide very well. So if you can look it up. I don't want to be so presumptuous to say, oh, I know I'll come here and do a great job. I don't know that. I have confidence that I do that. If I didn't have the confidence, I wouldn't have put it for.
Thank you. All right, well, I got the first question. Welcome back, I guess. It's good to see you again, Chris. I frequently speak on the value of relationships and how relationships matter, especially as a public servant. Our city council members are nonpartisan by charter, and our city manager is to be apartisan or apolitical, as you know. That said, a successful city manager and public servant will need to build and maintain relationships with people of varying beliefs, political views, and life experiences. Please explain your approach to relationship building and relationship maintenance using your past municipal experiences to illustrate where you have succeeded and where you may have failed and what you have learned as a result.
I think for my couple of decades now doing this, I've become, I almost say maybe violently nonpartisan in my outlook. But I've worked in the city of Algonac. I think it was in the New York Times a few years ago, was reported as one of the Trumpiest areas in the country. They did a profile on that. Huntington Woods probably consistently has one of the highest Democratic turnouts of any place in the state. I've worked with people of all, and I've worked with people in those communities that represent the whole range of that. Montcalm County is probably right in the 70% Republican territory. I think if you talk to all the people a lot of the people I've worked for over the years, if you ask them my personal political persuasions, they either wouldn't know or they'd probably get it wrong. And there's people I've worked with for years, I didn't know theirs. You're correct, I think, in the building of relationships, it's critical. It doesn't function well if you don't have that. And I think the biggest, as I spoke to the employees yesterday, the key factor there is trust. You can trust people who you don't agree with, on certain principles. You can distrust people who you agree with 95% of the time. those two things are, your beliefs and your trust are separate. I trust my brothers, and we would probably almost come to fisticuffs about certain aspects of there's certain people who I probably voted for who I, wouldn't let into the family. So, yeah, I think you can separate those two things. Yeah, if you truly believe this person that you disagree with, they're still coming from a position of good intention. They want they want the overall good for the community. They're not in it for their own personal best interest. They're not trying to feather their own nest or take care of people or take care of their families or operate their friends and family program. If you truly believe that, I think you can find ways to work with them. And you've got to be willing to compromise too. Some of the best policy outcomes I've been involved with are things where I and people who I was associated with, we gave quite a bit in order to get to consensus. And it was worth it. It was worth it to give a little bit of what you thought was best. I've learned to get that broader policy consensus. I think there's real value in that. That's something I maybe didn't always believe, but I've come to believe that much more strongly.
Thank you. Councilmember Chamberlain-Crankman.
Thank you, Mayor. How would you describe your management and leadership style? Please identify strengths and weakness related to both your management and your leadership approach. And identify how you hold direct reports accountable for projects and or issues that you've delegated to them.
Probably a bit of a hands-off leadership style. I have trust in particularly my direct reports, and certainly in a situation like this at this level. I have trust in their technical expertise, not only in their field, but also in their management of their employees. I think I have to. I'm here to help guide them on the overall guiding principle of the communities, the principles set forth by the elected body, and to help them with the experience that I may have in my perspective. But I need to be able to trust them when I'm not around. Some of them are running departments that are 24/7. I can't physically be there, and I need to be able to trust them that they have trained their employees to do the right things, and they have to kind of instill in them. You have to be able to have that same trust that the right thing's being done when you're not there, because I can't be everywhere at all times. And if I need to be there in order for the right things to happen, that's a problem. And I've generally found that works well. To hold them accountable, well, you better be willing to stand next to them when they mess up, or even ideally in front of them. Because things are going to go bad, they're going to make mistakes. Sometimes it's not even, things break, not even our fault. Their infrastructure fails, residents get mad. I hold them accountable privately. When things go bad, I need to be willing to stand up, either aside or in front of them. And when things go well, I push them in front of the press camera and get their picture, with the ribbon cutting or the new thing that's going on. So we have to work together. And my management style overall. And people call me boss, and it makes me cringe. I think we all sit at a round table. We're all here ultimately to make our jobs easier. I told the staff yesterday our jobs are hard enough without, we have enough challenges without making things harder on ourselves. So we're here to help. I should be out there, assuming their goal is to come in and do their job and do it well. I give them the tools and the resources and the perspective to make them do that, make that easier on them.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton.
Please describe to us your experience hiring candidates in the various roles you will be supervising, and please share how you will recruit, screen, and bring talented individuals into Troy. And finally, how will you create an environment where they want to stay with the city?
Yeah, so I've hired from public safety, police, fire, finance. I've done it on my own. I've done it in conjunction with the personnel committee, and I've done it directly in conjunction with council. Either things have to be approved or directly reported to them, depending on how the charter works. But I've done a lot of it on my own. It's changed a lot. I've now had the benefit of working with 3 and maybe even 4 different generations of employees, and their goals are all different. Everybody looks at a job and they look at the size of the community and the responsibility and the benefits packages, and that's one thing. That's a reason they'll take the job. It's never the reason why they're going to stay. They're going to stay for a whole different set of reasons. They're going to stay because they feel valued. They feel like they have the opportunity to do good. They have the opportunity to grow personally and professionally. those are the reasons why they will stay. It's easy to attract people, it's difficult to retain them. And I think you need to, there's some generalizations when I talk about, generations, but particularly I think in the area of retirement, that's been probably the biggest one. When you talk to my generation of people older than me and that promise of, hey, come in here and work 30 years and you can retire with a pension and go about, your retirement years, and that was a great value. People saw a lot of value in that. I talk to people younger than me now about, hey, if you stay 10 years, you're vested, and I can see their eyes glaze over them. They can't even comprehend the concept of that. It's just that has changed dramatically that I've seen. There's more turnover now than I saw earlier in my career. I think my first 5 years in Beverly Hills, I think we hired one public safety officer while I was there. Past that, they probably hired 30. It's just been that, it's been that dramatic of an HR change. Some of that was built in, that coincided with a change from a DB plan to a DC plan. And I told the council at the time, you're probably going to see somewhat of a change in turnover. I greatly underestimated that. It's been difficult, but it's not been, it's different, but it's not necessarily bad. I think these jobs are tough. They're not for everybody. People have moved through the profession and gone on to different, bigger, better things. They've got value from the experience they had here. So it's a lot different, but that's the biggest thing I see in retaining people. The things that get them in the door aren't the reasons why they're going to stay.
Thank you. Councilmember Chanda.
Thank you, Mayor. What do you think the city could do in the short and long term to make Troy more attractive to the younger generation?
As employees or residents?
Residents mostly, but employees as well, I guess.
Yeah. I see a big emphasis on, and this is something I really almost picked up on more in my 3 or 4 years that I've been in Huntington Woods. What I've noticed there's a long history of, even though it's a small community, somewhat an insular community, people come back to that community for 2 and 3 and 4 generations. The number of people I've talked to that said, I was born here, went to school here, was a great school system, I moved to Chicago or Philly or New York or whatever, and now I've come back here to raise my kids. The reasons why they do that have a lot to do with things that, if you look at the budget everywhere, you might look at those things and say, man, those are losers, right? Those programs don't generate enough revenue to justify themselves. On a year-to-year basis, they don't. But I've got people who have come back to that community, who bought a house at prices I find staggering for the size of the community, because they remember going to fruit camp there when they were a kid. And they spent their summer swimming at the pools. And they can walk their kid to the elementary school on sidewalks that, surprisingly enough, we clear. Those are the things that they remembered. Those don't show up in your bottom line on a year-to-year basis, but they matter to your communities. And I think today, more so than previous generations, they're looking for those soft benefits. I think they look for the things that you have to understand the value of, because the cost of it isn't always apparent. It doesn't necessarily show up on the budget, but people do value that, and they show that by staying, by returning, by establishing roots here. And I think you've got a base of people now their parents moved here, they went to the school system, they've got the resources, the capacity to go anywhere, and you're competing with Northvilles and the Grosse Points. They're going to make those decisions based on how they felt when they were here, and that's why they'll keep coming back.
Thank you. Councilmember Gunn.
Troy has a growing list of capital needs, such as the library and city hall. What is your vision for these capital projects, and how will you help the community move forward in a constructive direction? I took a tour yesterday. I saw some of that, and I think I understand that need. I've been to a lot of your parks. Well, I've been to the same ones over and over a lot. Some of them have been to me very frequently, but I could have my mail forwarded to firefighters a couple of years. I just felt like I lived there. I think it's important that we all get on the same page with that internally, as a staff, as an organization, as a council. Let's be realistic about what the needs are, where we want to go. Take a kind of a capital, it's boring, it's not that sexy, but let's take just a regular capital improvement plan that we put together on a spreadsheet and be realistic about it, put the numbers together, but also make sure that the community's on the same page with us. But they're not going to be if we're not. So if they see, we're gonna come to you for more money, we got this vision of what we wanna do, but we're 4-3, 5-2 against it, and I'm telling you, well, I don't know if that's a great idea, you don't even wanna do that? So I think we have to come to with a holistic package, a comprehensive package that we agree on, and it may not be, it may be 75% of what you want, 60% of what you want, 80% of what you want, but it's something 100% we can all agree upon. With the staff, with everybody together, those things will sell to the community if they see you're united behind it. You've got the capacity here to do it. You've got the capacity staff-wise to produce this. You've got the capacity in your revenue streams to make this happen. But I would agree there's some attention that needs to be paid for that. I've dealt with the legacy of deferred maintenance over and over and over again in my career, and as hard as it is today, it's going to be harder tomorrow. If you think it's tough to get those things back in shape today, try 5 years from now, because nothing gets. We're not getting any better, people. Did you watch the fight last night? Other time, still undefeated. True undefeated champion. So yeah, you got to address it now and just get on the same page.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
I'm stuck on that vision. Okay. How will you ensure that you maintain high ethical standards both in your work and the work of the city employees?
Yeah, I mean, that leadership does need to come from the top, but that's just a non-negotiable from my perspective. Again, this kind of goes back to the employee motivation and the Maslow's hierarchy of things. If that's not there, if it doesn't start with ethical leadership from the top, and these jobs, they do pay well and the benefits are well, but if those are the reasons you're here, you're either not going to do well or you're not going to stay very long. Because you can make more money with less responsibility doing a lot of other things than you're going to find in municipal work. And my wife's an educator, same thing. So I think that has to be built into the structure. It's self-reinforcing. You reinforce that every day about how I deal with you, how I deal with the staff, how we treat each other internally, and the employees see that filters all the way down to the bottom. Again, ultimately we're here in the service of the people and in service of each other to get a common task done, which is to provide goods and services for the people. So you build that in from the top down, and you do it right, it becomes self-reinforcing. And those that aren't here for that reason, they'll either get on board or they'll go someplace else where it's a better fit. That's how that'll go. And that's been my experience.
Thank you. Councilmember Brooks?
How would you prioritize competing demands and interests within a community, particularly when resources are limited? And how will you ensure that the diverse voices of our community are heard and considered?
Yeah, I think it's okay. So the different priorities. Yeah, you can always talk about juggling different priorities. I'll start with the priorities for the diversity. I think those are two separate things. One of my favorite things I like to use is not too crass, but when everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, right? You can't have everything be a priority every day. There are times when certain things take higher priority over others, but we do have things we work on here that are very important, like public safety. How important is the water department on a daily basis? Well, it becomes very important when your water's shut off, right? So those things vary on a day-to-day basis, and you got to be flexible. You got to be able to triage. Road construction is critically important for about 6 months, and we love to forget about it, right? Because we don't want to do that in the winter. So you can't treat everything as a priority. Everything can't be 95 miles an hour, your hair on fire, chaos. But you have to be able to be responsive. You have to have capacity set aside, so when something important does come up, you can make that a priority. You can bring the administrative capacity and the personnel capacity you need to address that. Where if you're got yourself stretched too thin and you're focusing 100% attention all the time everywhere else, I have people to do that. I may need to focus 2 or 3 days on this particular department because something happened here. And I think that's the perspective I try to bring to that. But again, on the diversity, we have Huntington Woods has worked, I think, very hard on that started before I got there. Credit to Amy Sullivan, the previous city manager, who started a DEI plan that was put in place with a consultant. They have, they ended up settling on the name. Started out as a DEI committee, they refer to it now as the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, which I've been the staff liaison appointed to work with them. It's been interesting work, something I hadn't done a lot of in my career. Huntington Woods is a pretty diverse community as well. Not at the same scale or the type, I think, that Troy has. I think the biggest, and having experience with Troy, incredibly diverse, and my kids have been a part of that as students here, and I think have benefited from it. I think the biggest challenge I would see is that relying totally on the ballot box for that public feedback is going to be a little bit limited here. There's a lot of people here who may not have access to that. I think you need to find different ways of outreach. The tools are all there. Some of this I think is still developing. I started this career before social media was a thing, and we reacted, as a profession slowly, and sometimes not too well to that. I think we're getting a better handle on understanding those mediums and how we get positive and correct feedback, and how to filter that. Relying on public meetings, I think is wildly imperfect for that. Even with what I do, and my wife who stands up in front of 140 kids every single day of the week, would never come to a meeting like this and speak her mind on something. She wouldn't do it. And I think that's because she's probably normal. A lot of people fall into that category. So I think we have formats in place to rely on that, but I think they're imperfect and people are busy, right? Their priorities are right. They're taking care of their families and their kids, and their parents are sick, and they've got other things going on. So we have better tools in place to reach out to those. I don't think we've perfected that craft yet, but we're getting better on getting the public feedback, and I think that's been a good thing.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton.
The internal culture in the city of Troy is important. We want to make sure employees feel respected, supported, and encouraged to do their best work. As city manager, how will you improve employee and volunteer satisfaction across all departments?
Well, I'll try. I won't say I will, because I haven't started yet. But I've been there with them, right? I've been in the bad situations. I've had to. My second city manager job, I was 29. I had just turned 29, and I take over for a guy who stole $50,000, got charged criminally, and spent 9 months in 90 days in jail and bad acts, and got 5 years probation. Had zero idea of what I was walking into with that. Employee morale in a place that's hard to get much lower. And the killer was that the community loved the guy, because everybody loved the con man. Nobody ever says, I can't believe I gave that money to that con man, he was such a jerk. No, you learn that was kind of the shtick, but it worked for him for a while. But there was a lot of paying for the sins of the father that went on, and there's going to be some of that. Listen, you're going to work in the public sector. You're going to take a beating every once in a while. That happens. People come in mad. I give the employees the skills that I use. One, don't take this personally. Don't internalize everything. That's hard. It's not hard. It's impossible. The day I don't mind being yelled at and called ugly names, I'm going to go find something else to do, because it should hurt a little bit. It should sting a little bit. But again, don't completely internalize it, and don't get defensive. Talk to people. Listen to people. When you can, separate them aside from the things that they're upset about at that time, and listen. A lot of times, they're mad about their water bill, but that's not they're having job problems, they're having family problems. Pull them aside, talk to them, empathize with them. And then I also, you have to discern the ability to figure out pretty quick. Sometimes people have a problem, they want you to come fix it. Sometimes they just want to fight, right? You want to fix it or you want to fight about it, because it's hard to do both at the same time. You need to be able to discern that from the person you're dealing with. If they just want to fight, okay, then give them that forum, let them vent, explain your position, and then try to move on. If they really want to fix it, then find a way to fix it. And you may be able to flip that, at any one time. Sometimes they're just upset, and you're the vessel they're going to empty that anger into. And you better have emotional strength and toughness to deal with that. And again, not everybody's cut out with that, but yeah, I can empathize with them. Morale's, low. Take a breather, take a minute, you take some time, and find support in your confidants, because we're all going to have to deal with that at some point.
Thank you. Councilmember Gunn.
In our council manager form of government, if chosen as city manager, you will report to 7 bosses, each with the inability to do anything without at least 3 others. Please share how you intend to navigate the city manager role, reporting to the 7 of us, including how you would handle a divided council. How much time we got? What you described, it's the nature of the position. It's difficult to give a clear and concise answer to that. I think what I would say is yes. Because that's what we do. I love to have the individual conversations one-on-one with people. I love it when you call me and say, hey, stop signs over so-and-so, and those are the great things. A stop sign fell down, I can fix it by the end of the day. Those are the things that you live for, right? But I have to be able to we have to all be on the same page. To remind you, when you call me and say, I think we got that upcoming contract negotiation coming up, and this is what I would like to see implemented in that. Okay, thank you. Have you talked to the mayor? Have you talked to your other colleagues about that? And I've been involved with multiple. You have your own communication style. The current mayor that I have, right now we get along very well. And I've learned I always call him first, and then it's, do you want me to call everybody else, or do you want to do it? And he's taking the position. A lot of times he wants to do it himself, which was unusual for me. But if that's the way that you guys want to operate, I can fix problems for you. I can help. Residents come to you with something, I can help you fix it. I always used to tell them, send them my way, because you don't get paid enough to deal with that. I may not either, but I'm getting something. So send them my way, and I'll fix it and give you the credit for it, and everybody walks away happy. There's a point where it crosses over from a city issue that needs to be addressed to a larger city policy issue. That's where I say I would hear you out on that, but I can't go in that direction because you tell me to. Particularly when I know that 2 or 3 other of your colleagues may not agree with that. Talk to them. Let's all have a conversation. Let's bring the leadership structure involved, and just kind of differentiate that line. I have no problem with you calling me when there's a pile of garbage somewhere, and trash is messed, whatever. All that kind of stuff's fine. I don't need a formal hierarchy for that. But there are things that do need to go through that for legitimate reasons.
Thank you. Councilmember Chanda.
Please describe the extent of your experience with business and economic development and redevelopment. What would you consider to be your most significant accomplishment in this area?
Yeah, we had a plaza in the city of Algonac. I don't know if you're familiar with the town at all, but there's a lot of benefits there. M29 runs right along the St. Clair River. There's a park across from that, and we had a shopping plaza there. Well, it was an old Farmer Jack's. I'll tell you how long ago it was. On my first day in the community, I drive in there. I set up at the hotel, and I go over there. They have a Chinese place, and I walk in there, and I'm like, oh, good Lord. I order some food. I go home, and the fire marshal comes and tells me the next day, yeah, we had to shut that down. They had water leaking into the electric panel. Like, I was just there. I was just there. Part of it had a dirt floor in it that had never been finished from the 70s. It was done under, if you've been around, anybody been around long enough to remember urban renewal, that was how far this went back to the 70s urban renewal projects. It was bad. The drains had quit working in the loading docks. It was full of water. So we worked, somebody built a CVS, a developer built a CVS. I think kind of got swindled into buying the rest of the plaza, but he took it. He came to work with me. We set aside a lot of rules to make that work, and it was different. I had to work with the planning commission at times, and again, there's drawbacks and benefits to not being from a place. There's benefits to bringing a fresh set of eyes to something. So I remember the somewhat pointed discussions we had at planning commission meetings where they were talking about dressing up this plaza, and they wanted to put a water wheel on it, and let's put the Edmund Fitzgerald out there, whatever they wanted to throw on them. I'm like, guys, you've got an international one. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Nobody's driving to Algonac to look at your plaza. They got their own shopping plaza, right? They're not driving up here to look at your Rite Aid, sorry. They're driving up here to look at that. This needs to not be an embarrassment. That's the standard we need to have. We don't want to be embarrassed, and we're embarrassed right now by how that looks. So let's think about this in a different way. Nobody's going to drive, they're going to drive by to see the 1,100-foot freighters go by, 300 feet off of the shoreline. Where can you see that? Very, very few places. It's, they're coming here to fish and to see scenery they can't even see. But I appreciated that because I had never seen that before. That was all new to me. I didn't see that in the Cass Corridor. So I was impressed by that. They lived there their whole life and it was second nature to them. But they understood the plaza looked bad. You're right. Let's make it not look bad. Let's make it, people shouldn't notice that. If they're looking at the CVS and not at the St. Clair River, that's a problem. And they were. So, well, I got them on board. We threw out we modified rules to help the developer get that project under control. And they ended up revitalizing the entire plaza, brought in a gym, brought in other businesses, brought in a bank. And actually the bank moved from a larger location that they were outsized in, took a space in there, and we worked with the city to make that it's an Algonac Clay Historical Maritime Museum. So it worked out, I think, really well for everybody. And you drive by today, you don't notice it because you're looking to your right, not to your left. That's the way it should be.
Please describe a situation when you disagreed with your governing board. You touched on this a little bit earlier. How did you approach that difference of opinion and explain the final results?
That's okay, I got plenty. I got others. Some of the bigger mistakes I think that I've made, I can't ever see a problem, I see something's going to be a problem, and I can't, when that problem arises, I can't come to you like, well, yeah, I saw that 6 months ago, I'm not surprised that it happened. If I have a disagreement, then I will tell you, I disagree with you and here's why. Now, it's your choice, not implement that choice, but here's why I think that decision's going to be a problem, here's the things I think you're not considering, and I just got to voice my opinion to you. If it's appropriate, well, we can do it at the meeting. If not, I'll do it in a different way, by a memo or some other form. But I owe it to you to give you my professional opinion. That's why you hired me. I'm not a chef. I'm supposed to be a professional expert, and I don't read the recipes. We work together on the recipes, but you have the final say on it, right? And I'll cook whatever we decide. But I can't have. I'm doing a disservice if I have misgivings or I have second thoughts about something that you're saying, and I don't tell you that. Now the bad part is when I turn out to be wrong, and I got to come back 6 months later and go, you had me there. And when come back and admit it. There's been that's happened before, and I say, you know what, I disagreed with you about that, and you were right. If I'm right, I probably won't bring it up. But if it's going to go bad, and I think it's going to go bad, and I know you're not on the same page with me, I owe it to you to tell you that. I can't sit aside, or I can't go, oh geez, I can't believe they did that, you know what's going to happen. I have to give you my honest opinion. And then when you were right and I was wrong, I got to admit that, and then not bring it up the other way. Thank you.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Cracker.
Thank you, Mayor. How have you engaged the community in understanding municipal budget limitations and setting realistic priorities? What approaches have you found most effective in building public support for budget adjustments?
We found ourselves in that situation in the village of Beverly Hills. We had the capacity, I think, to fund the services we have, but the way we were doing it was a bit off. At that point, we engaged in a community survey. We hired a firm to kind of give us some feedback. The results were, here's a good time when I tell you something we disagreed upon. It had been a rough time there. We wanted to put this question in the survey: how do you feel about the current city council? And the city council, oh God, we can't put that in there. I said, why not? Don't you come to our meetings? They hate us. I said, put it in there, you're going to be shocked. I said, you'll get 70% positive on that. Oh, there's no way. It'll be the other way around. Okay. 75% of people said, I think the council's doing a good job. The council was blown away. I said, that's, again, I see things you guys don't see. You saw the people who are mad who come into the council and yell at you. There's 10,000 people here, that's 5 of them. So that was a good example. Stuff we got out of that survey that was valuable. But we found out what people prioritized. We reorganized the way we operated to meet those priorities. We dedicated, we almost went with almost a township model on how we funded government, where we had dedicated millages, the largest of which supported public safety. We had a smaller millage that supported the Baldwin Library, because that was, if you know the Baldwin Library in Birmingham, we had a long-standing relationship with them, which we just funded out of the general fund. Well, people placed a really high priority in that, which they should, because Baldwin was great. So we were able to tell people, this isn't going in the general fund anymore. We have a separate millage, it was about 0.6 mils. That this is going to be part of the package, you'll pay for that. So we kind of a la carte itemized everything, and we found that to be easier to sell to people. In 2010, which was probably the worst, maybe the most difficult election of the generation to get some kind of a tax increase across, we got it across by 60%. And we did it by, I think, getting the priorities from the community, aligning those priorities, because those priorities didn't fit. We changed the governance model a little bit. And I think you have to understand a little bit on, I'm trying to go on a separate track here, but I think we don't run the government like a business. You hear that all the time. I think it's an imperfect analogy, but one area I think we could do better. Business understands where their revenue comes from. Almost maybe more than their expenditures. They understand where their revenue's coming in from. We sort of take it for granted like it's just some kind of magic potion. And it's not. I mean, we made the rules up, right? Well, the state did. But we abide by them, but we do have control over that. When you get your budget every year, the revenues are like this and the expenditures are like this, right? And we kind of operate accordingly. I think you have to understand your revenue stream. You need to understand the state laws that dictate that, how it's generated locally. I think we skim over that. And if you understand that, you can explain it to people. We held a series of community meetings. Gosh, I went to neighborhood meetings. And the best thing was I met people I didn't know, because sometimes you talk to the same 50 people over and over again. I knew it was a good meeting when I was talking to people that I didn't know and hadn't met before, and we took it to them and explained it to them. That's how we got it through. Well, that was sort of the process we saw. And I think if you can tell people where their money's going, but you have to understand those systems inside and out to explain it to other people. And I think when we evaluate our expenditures like a lot, and we give the revenue side of it short shrift, I think we need to just focus on those mechanisms a little deeper.
Councilmember Brooks.
What strategies would you employ to foster collaboration and communication among various city departments and stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, the old model of still do the staff meeting and bring all the department heads together and everybody talks about something, and you allow that to be, disseminated across everybody. You can do that. It's somewhat effective, but it leaves gaps. What I've found sort of effective, and what we're doing a little bit in Huntington Woods now with our, what we call now the community engagement officer, it's nice to have a central communications kind of nexus or clearinghouse for all that information, because what you end up with when you don't have good communication across the department, I'm gonna put on a program at this park this weekend. Oh, that's the weekend we're tearing out the parking lot. It's very easy for those things to happen, and it makes us all look foolish because we've all got a million things going on. We don't have time. And something with that staff meeting, think, God, if I can get 14 people together in one room at one time, maybe for Christmas. I mean, otherwise, on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock, that's almost impossible to do. And while they're there, they're waiting to get out because they got 4 other things waiting on them when they walk out the door. So you need to build that internally into your system, where you have a communications team or people who bring all that information together, because they're disseminating it out to the public. And that's what's embarrassing. If something goes out in an e-blast that we're not aware of internally, that's kind of a function of how much we're doing, how much staff has been reduced, that we lose out on that. And I find the communications team is kind of critical in that. They're the best clearinghouse, the best repository of all that, because they'll see those conflicts before anybody else, sometimes before we realize them, and they can communicate them back out. So it's a great place to have all that information go in, and it goes out, not just the community, but it goes out to us internally as well. That's how we're trying to kind of reorganize it at our level.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
What opportunities do you look forward to as Troy's city manager? And conversely, what are the challenges you see coming Troy's way? Why are you the best candidate to seize those opportunities and face those challenges?
I spent most of my career, obviously, in organizations much smaller than this. I appreciate the capacity I think that Troy has externally and internally. Internally with your staff and your resources, the people that I've met and I've worked with before, I find to be real professionals and can get a lot of projects done. But you also have the capacity in your tax base and in your infrastructure to, I think, to realize significant gains. I think the challenge is going to be, managing that in a comprehensive fashion. I drive around and I've spent some time going around through the city parts. I don't go to that much. Yeah, you do have capital needs. You got a lot of good stuff in place, but like any community that was built out at a certain time, all those things start. That was kind of the downfall of rapid growth. Everything was built at the same time. It's going to go bad at the same time, and you're approaching some of those deadlines. You can see them. So you can get there. It takes planning. It's going to take a little bit of work with the community. But I think those are fun challenges, and you have the ability to meet them. There are communities of your size and of your age who don't have the ability that you do to meet them. That's their biggest problem is how do we address, we've got 30% less people than we had 40 years ago, but all this infrastructure is still here. Businesses are gone. We don't have the tax base we had. You're so far ahead of the game. You got so many advantages. You've got challenges, but you've got the capacity to meet them, and it's just managing that capacity to the challenges you have. There are other places that are starting in a much worse situation than a lot of across the state, and I think that's representative of a broken municipal finance system. Different story, different day, different interviewee. How do I bring the governor into those conversations? But how do I know? Like I said, I don't want to be so presumptuous and say I know that I would do that. I don't. I can tell you what I've done. I'll bring those same tools to the job here. I hope it'll go well. If it doesn't, you'll be the last one to tell me I'll know. But I didn't think I could do that. I didn't think I could do a good job. I wouldn't have put myself in that situation to not succeed.
Thank you. James.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chris, for your preparation, for your participation yesterday, and for being here this morning. We do have a couple minutes left. If you can prioritize maybe one question, if you have any, for the City Council, now would be that time.
Well, Mayor.
Uh-oh.
What? Come on. One question or one person?
One question.
One question. I might defer to somebody else. So.
I saw what I thought were some of the capital needs. You agree with that? You think we're on the right track, or is there something I'm missing with that as far as what's going to be kind of the capital priorities going forward for the next 5 to 10 years?
I think from a capital standpoint, we've all talked about it ad nauseum. The library, City Hall, all of our city facilities, 57 buildings that we own that were built long ago. Even our newer ones, like the community center, are now 30 years old. They're almost 30 years old. So you look at what that means moving forward. I think another aspect, and it's capital, but it's operating, is recreation as well. We've talked a lot in this community about what our seniors are looking for, what they used to have, what they don't have now. And same with just recreational programs coming out of our community center and such. So is that fair? Kind of where we're at? If it's not, I'm in trouble. But I mean, it's, the quality of life stuff is hugely important, but that bleeds into infrastructure. And we do a good job prioritizing public safety. And we will never not do that, obviously. And our infrastructure, our water and our roads, that's also a top priority. And that's what our residents want. But I think that next leg is the recreational stuff as well.
And I'm going to have a long history with your school, and I see they got out in front of you maybe a little bit because they generated a lot of money, but they had the same needs. I mean, you couldn't. I saw some of the facilities my kids were using. And it was time, and the school's being really aggressive in that. They've used some of that capacity, but I think there's still enough there to go around. But I've seen that from their perspective. And the parents were supportive. I mean, largely they were supportive, and I think you'll find the same thing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Chris, you get the last word, so if you want to close with this last minute that you have and finish this out.
Thank you for being here on a Saturday, taking your time. It's rough as this is for me, and I was right out there with the root canal as fun. Fun activities you go through, right? People that give up your time for this, I'm sort of amazed by it. And I said, you ever want to run for office? And good Lord, man. No, when I'm retired, I'm going to go in the Miller plant. I'm going to move up north and hermitize myself. When he told me I was ready to do it, I was like, yeah, of course that's what you're doing. I understand. Well, thank you for just putting your time into this. My father did 10 years on the school board back where I'm from, 3 years as school board president. And I remember those times. And I know what you're giving of yourself and taking away from your families, and it's commendable. And go Lions.
All right. I will walk the candidate out. We don't have any other business, so if you want to proceed without me,
That's fine.
I can close it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate it coming.
Take care.
We don't have any other business on the agenda. I just want to say, I'm sure on behalf of all of us, thank you to city staff that has invested so much time in this process. Can't get out that way. How long? But I know city staff has put a lot of time into this entire year, meeting with candidates, focusing on tours yesterday, sitting down and meeting with the individuals, and and our city attorney, who has played a role working with us throughout this process, and of course with James, at times more involved than others, and at times sufficiently behind the scenes where it was expected. But we also recognize that this process is most impactful on the daily lives of those employees who are the ones that are here every single day, or at least 5 days a week. And we're completely mindful of that as a body and take this very seriously as a result. I also want to thank, although none of them are here, all 3 of the candidates for putting themselves out there, number one. There's risk in that. If you know the business at all, it's tough. And they've invested some time in the community yesterday, taking tours, meeting with residents, meeting with departments, heads, and staff. That's a big part of it. I think we were blessed with 3 wonderful individuals to talk to today, each bringing a different perspective and a different strength. So as I stated at the beginning of this meeting, we meet next in our regular meeting on Monday the 25th. 25th? Is that right?
Yes, it
Seems
is.
late because Thanksgiving's so late. Where we're expected to make an appointment of city manager. So thank you all for coming who are here today, and you've been a fairly controlled crowd, so we appreciate that as well. And with that, no other business will be adjourned.